Morning, and we're here to have another talk with Glow Stars discussing God in therapy. Beginning with making sure that you listen, you tag and share. All information is in the description of this video. We're going to get right into it. The title of our message today was uh, doing the same things over and over and expecting something different. In therapy world, we call that the definition of insanity. So doing the exact same thing over and over again and expecting something different, right? And today we wanted our focus to be on men's mental health, as most people know that June is men's mental health, and there is a crisis when it comes to men and mental health. As therapists, we see it all the time, and so we really wanted to address that. We start, every live with a scripture. And so I went to Job 33, and 29 and 30 says, it reads, God does all these things to a person twice, even three times, to turn them back from the pit that the light of life may shine on them. And so I really looked at that and I really resonated on that scripture, particularly in 30 when it says the light of life may shine on them, turning them away from the pit, meaning something you shouldn't be doing, sin, etc. And so I want to know who was speaking to Job. As we know, Job was enslaved. He was a man of God. He did everything right, but was still enslaved. And so when they talk about this in Job 33, a young man is speaking to him in this scripture. Elihu, I think that's how they pronounce it, Elihu. Um, and basically, he's telling Job, who's now, in this period of suffering, talking to his friends. They're not understanding, where he's coming from, why he's feeling the way he's feeling. And this particular young man comes to him like, hey, I need you to stop talking to him. I need you to turn to God. He's trying to speak to you, but you're speaking to everyone else, and he's trying to get you to listen to him. And so as I was, researching this, one of the things that stood out to me when I was reading about it, it says, this young man's words serve as a bridge between Job's suffering and God's wisdom, offering insight into the complexities of human suffering and divine intervention. Those words from the author of the information I looked up was so enlightening to me. Mental health is human suffering. Anyone who's going through a mental health crisis equates to human suffering, right? And oftentimes in adversity, and we're going through things, we tend to turn away from God. And in this message, this young man is telling Job, like, hey, I understand, but the only answers you're going to get is from God. And so you need to be turning to him in this time of human suffering. And so we really started talking about men's and mental health yesterday as we were meeting with the team. And I actually posed a question on my Facebook page about, hey, particularly in the African American community, some studies are showing that African American men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than African American women, and that rate is steadily rising. And so my question was simply like, why do you think that is? And really wanting men to engage in that conversation. As therapists, it always intrigues us, and it's always an opportunity for we to find ways to better help the general public. But only one man replied to that post. One man replied to that post. And I said, that's a representation of what the world looks like. And so what I mean by that is that men don't reach out. And no matter how many of the resources we have available, no matter how many people around you who are willing to encourage you, no matter how much good advice you may have available to you, if you don't reach out, there's nothing we can do. And so when we talk about the definition of insanity, meaning doing the same things over and over again, from a therapeutic standpoint, we often go to what we know, even if it's bad, and expecting something to change when it never will. In mental health crisis, the one thing that's going to be a benefactor of people being able to see the difference in their lives and being able to get on the other side, you have to do something different. You have to go talk to God for one, and then you have to seek out the necessary help. Let me take that back to the team and get your feedback.
Well, I'll begin, Darnisha. I was just thanking Jesus for this conversation. As you were talking, you really, really broke that down. All mental health is concerning, but for men and especially African American men, listening to those statistics are very concerning. That's what I was talking about with Darnisha when only one man responded to the post. That is really significant or insignificant. Why are people not getting the help that they truly need? Um, to the men that are listening out there today, the reason why G.L.O.W was even established. Now, here's the thing with women, and we don't want to compare men and women today, but when we created G.L.O.W, G.L.O.W was created for men. This was a time during COVID where we were seeing so many men committing suicide. And I posed the question to God as to why are all these men figuring that's the simplest solution to their issues and problems? And they said because he told me it's because they're not getting the adequate help that they need. So my teammates and I, we created G.L.O.W. We created curriculum. We created lesson plans for almost anything that we could think of when it comes to suffering with mental health and everything that we have been able to counsel with over the past 10 years of us being therapists. And surprisingly, more women reached out to us with G.L.O.W though than the men that we actually created this for. So I want to say this when it comes to mental health as women. Women, we go through a lot too. And we have to be quote unquote the strong ones, but that's not even how God designed it. True strength comes from you actually recognize that there is a problem, that there is a issue, and you dealing with it. It seems in our time more women deal with their stuff than men. But this is why we're reaching out to men today because you all are supposed to be a woman's strength. And we got to get back to that.
That's good, Gil.
Thank
Um, I was gonna say, with having the conversation a little earlier, just understanding that men, you are seen, and we most definitely understand that it takes a responsibility, that as women, some of us have actually had to uphold, but in a different way, obviously. And so we're not in anybody's minds. We don't know what we don't know. And if you are in a position and you want to be heard and you want to be seen, you have to make yourself available to the right people, because it doesn't matter if you're going to go talk to Johnny. If Johnny doesn't understand you, then he's going to only give you advice solely based off his knowledge and his ability to give you advice. But if you really want to be able to heal, if you really want to have somebody that understands, you have to go seek help in the proper places.
Mhm.
A lot of times, like I said earlier, we tend to run to people and things that we believe can help us cope with these situations, but in reality, they can't. Alcohol isn't going to help you understand the problem and issues that you're really facing. Drugs isn't going to help, and sex isn't going to help that either. So instead of running to the things to suppress the feelings, to suppress the thoughts, and make you get away for a moment, this is the opportunity to truly reach out to help, to say, hey, I don't have it all figured out. I may be a man that's in a position and I don't want people to know, but understanding that therapy is confidential,
Yeah.
and understanding that there is a safe place to come to. And so that you don't have to deal with these problems and issues alone. But a lot of times we want people to see us that don't even know us, don't even recognize the hurt, that is within us. And sometimes those people are the closest people to you,
Hmm.
and you got to remember how you present, to some is how they take it at face value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think that's good, Tatiana. I think another thing that we don't take into consideration, I think sometimes, is that the burden is put on those others in your life. We teach as therapists is that whomever that other than children, whomever we're sitting in front of, any adult that we're sitting in front of, that is your responsibility, right? It's great if you have encouragement. We love it. It's great if you have people around you who support you. We definitely love it. It's great for your mental. But the reality is some of us out here in this world, we don't have that yet.
Yeah.
And so for men who are out there as as one gentleman put it, suffering in silence, you have to care about you enough to be able to take the necessary steps. We all have a responsibility as adults to do that. And I know we can think of 100 other things to do other than taking care of our own mental health, but you have a responsibility as a man. Society and old school teachings teach, that a man is strong and, you suck it up and you don't worry about it and yada yada yada. But the reality is that if you don't address it, it can literally kill you. So we're talking about specifically suicide. It can, but even just your growth, your relationships, your relationship with kids. How often we get adult clients that say, "I have a terrible relationship with my mom or a terrible relationship with my dad because." I found out, 20 years later they were dealing with X, Y, and Z, and they were terrible parents because of that. And so you don't want to get to a point of being so much in despair that suicide is an option or that you destroy everything around you, meaning relationships and or, not being able to keep a job and other things because you're not taking the adequate help. And so I urge men to really think about that because it is definitely a taboo subject in most circles concerning men. But I urge men to really think about, am I really concerned about what my friend thinks or what, this old cat thinks who's in his 50s and 60s? I ain't never been to therapy. I'm fine. And you looking over his life like that dude really ain't that fine. But okay,
Right.
you need to do what's good for you. And these resources are available. And so for G.L.O.W, we offer God in therapy. So we're not saying don't go to God because you definitely need God in every aspect of your life, first and foremost. But there are things that we can give you in your everyday life in addition to the word that will help you get through these tough moments and be able to understand. That's the biggest thing. Men get to a point where they don't even understand why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And
Yeah.
therapy allows you to understand where those feelings come from and why you're acting the way you're acting. All you know is I've been mad and angry my whole life, and that's just who I am. Like, no, there's a deeper issue inside that we need to really start addressing. And you can't go around portraying this mean, evil, bitter person your entire life because that's just how you've been. And so taking your choice and your ability back to be able to get the appropriate help and not really not caring about the ideas of people who are not there for you to help you. Because that's what happens. Oh, you don't need to do that. Those people aren't for you. You know you're suffering. That's all that matters. When you know you're suffering, that's all the reassurance you need.
Yeah.
Yep, that's good.
I was gonna say to the men, I hope, I have a joke that I say to men that actually come to therapy, like now y'all gotta listen to me. But I love it though, because the men that we actually serve actually truly listen to us. And it goes back to the scripture that you shared earlier, Darnishan, about the importance of listening. And as counselors, even the Bible says it's important that you receive wise counsel. A person that is struggling with the same thing you struggling with and ain't doing nothing about it is not going to help you do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. They might offer you drugs. They might offer you alcohol. You might turn to sex, all these different things. But at the end of the day, this is why we titled it what we talked about. You doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, and you're wondering why you're suffering. You're
Mm-hmm.
not doing what you need to do to get out of the issue, the problem that came here. I want to say this as three women, right? We've been in long-term relationships, we've been divorced, but when God took us through our healing process, we made an agreement with God, each of us individual, like we had to step away from men. And not saying that we don't love men, but every man that we encountered were hurt, that were broken, and they were breaking us. This is important for the women too. And we had to make a point. People say, well, why are you not with nobody? because literally these men turn into our assignments, which we're not mad about. We counsel them. They listen to us. Any man that's on this live can share if you're willing to, what the things that we've been able to input and pour into your life. But even for us women to stay healthy, you have to understand when you're dealing with a healthy person. I wanted to break down Genesis, right? And men, you are number one importance to God. God didn't create woman first, he created a man. And he created a man and he gave men responsibility over everything on this earth. The man was even able to name the animals, to name the birds, but God continued to level up his responsibilities. So when it came to Eve, he saw how Adam dealt with every other responsibility and he did it with excellence. And now he said, oh, okay, I can give up this woman. Eve came in, gave Adam problems. We ain't gonna deny that, you right? So women got our stuff too, but God entrusted Adam with Eve because he knew that he could be responsible. So this is a thing to men, but also to women. Until you take responsibility for yourself in already the responsibilities and the things that you have to carry in your own life, not God is not going to give you more than that. But in this world, what we're doing is getting into relationships with unhealthy people, men and women. We're not dealing with our stuff. And then we wonder why we have problems. It's a lack of accountability and a lack of responsibility. And like what Tatiana said, we're all responsible for ourselves. As adults, it doesn't matter. Although I can say this lightly, God cares about everything that you went through in life. But once you become an adult, your healing is your responsibility.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I most definitely agree. Agree with that, Gail. We have to get to a place of understanding that we're important, male and female. We have to get to a place of understanding that our lives do matter. But we have to get to that place to understand the importance of us first. Like, we have to love ourselves first. I mean, you can't love anybody else if you don't love yourself. And sometimes, even with that, we have a tainted view of what love is, right? And so God wants to love us. He wants to love on us, and he wants to be able to, supply and give us all the things that we need. But a lot of times, because we have a mixed view or a bad view of it because of how we grew up, then we tend to believe that that is what love is. And
Yeah.
so we have to take a step back, take responsibility, take accountability, but now also come to a place of vulnerability. And so if we're not vulnerable with the right people, because you got to once again make sure it's the right people, then you tend to hear all the negative output from others versus truly receiving love, and even if it's correcting in love, or whatever that looks like, it has to be from a place of love, because I don't want to share information with you and tell you, hey, look at yourself in this aspect, but I'm coming at you rah, 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 rah. And so,
Mhm.
um, if you are with a woman and that's what you're getting, then maybe there needs to be some reevaluation. Same
Yeah.
thing if you can't go to your friends, your homeboys, or whatever, there needs to be some reevaluation. And so I feel like a lot of times, because we invest in people and things, so we have history, right? So with this history, now we don't want to let go because we, it's longevity there, but longevity doesn't always equal just means that it's the best for you either. And so we have to make sure that we're making ourselves a priority and the focal point in our lives, and stop. It's okay to put yourself first. You don't
Yeah.
have to keep putting everybody else before you. It's okay to say, hey, I need a moment. Let me take a vacation. Let me take a moment to myself. And if you can't do that around the people that you're around, then it is most definitely just time to reevaluate where you are and where you stand with people, because your life is more valuable than you going out here and losing it because of life and you don't have anybody that you can confide in and talk to. Because I know even though we go to God, we still love to have somebody that we can actually sit and talk to right in front of us as well. And so we have to make sure that we have the right people that we're, allowing ourselves to open up to. It's just vital. It's just important.
Why I said,
So, my man. So as we're talking about that, I think about um, the people around you. Obviously, play a major role in it, but also not being afraid to go to a stranger. Obviously, as therapists, everybody we encounter is a stranger because we can't serve people we know.
Mm-hmm.
I
We
make them
can't do
my
it.
friend.
Our ethics, our ethics won't allow us to serve people we know. So
Right.
everybody we come across is a stranger. So my thing is, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go talk to somebody who is just going to get to learn who you are based off what you tell them, not what they think they know about you. I think
Right.
that's a big thing for a lot of people who don't want to seek out therapy. They don't know me. Great, that's great. They're only going to hear what you tell them and not, oh, I've been knowing them for 15 years. They this type of person. They this type of these misconceptions people may have about you based off of the experience they've had with you. As therapists, we take the information you've given us, we evaluate it, and we do our best to give you the best tools available.
Yeah.
That a fresh start with someone new who doesn't know you may be just what you need, and they have the expertise to talk you through the issues that you are currently dealing with.
Right.
I even hear that even as a therapist, like I don't think I want to talk to somebody. I want to talk to you, Darnish, because I know you. No, you really don't. You want to talk to somebody who don't know you,
Right.
because we call them biases, right? Because I know things about you that you probably ain't gonna tell your therapist, which is
Right.
fine because those things may not be related to what you're needing to go to therapy for. But you need to go talk to somebody who's gonna have an unbiased opinion of you, who can help you through the struggles that you're asking them to help you through, and not being afraid of that. And we always equate mental health to physical health because they go hand in hand. But we
Mm.
put such a huge emphasis on it, not understanding that people are literally dying because they're not taking care of their mental health. You will go to a doctor that you ain't never seen. You just seen their name online, and you will show up to that doctor's appointment and won't think nothing twice about it. It's the same thing with therapy. You go there, our names on a list of names, and you pick one. It's in your area, and you go. It's the same way. And just like you can choose a different doctor if it doesn't fit, it's the same thing about therapists. Because I've heard that too. Oh, I went to therapy session 5 years ago, and I didn't like that guy. I didn't like that. Okay, choose somebody else.
Yeah.
Don't use that as a catalyst not to continue on your journey to get you the help you need. I implore that because there is someone out there that can help you. If you put your mind into it, if you go in there with an open mind and an open heart, there is someone that can help you.
Yeah.
We tend to come up with a lot of excuses to justify us not doing what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we're at the stage where we can't continue to do that. We're raising a generation of children who are committing suicide. I'm talking about suicide rates for kids are exponentially higher than it was the last decade. It
Yeah.
is crazy the amount of children that are committing suicide. We are the adults in their lives at this stage in our life. We have got to do a better job. And that
Yeah.
starts with us. How can I
Yeah.
tell a child that they need to do X, Y, and Z when I'm not doing the things I need to do? So men play such a crucial role in their children's lives, and it's so, 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 so downplayed. It's so,
Yeah.
so, so downplayed in our society, the impact that a positive male role model or a biological father who is whole and healed can have on his children's lives. It is so vital and so important. And we need to stop doing that as a society, making it seem like it's not that big of a deal. It is definitely that big of a deal. But that starts with us. How can I be that father in order to be able to teach my son or my daughter how important and valuable their life is when I'm not even doing it for my own life? So I
Yeah.
really, really implore me because you're teaching the next generation something that you don't ever want them to know. And so you have to get the help because your role as a parent, as an uncle, as a grandfather, as a friend is so so vital. As a brother is so vital, and we're taking risks that can literally that will it's not an if that will affect the next generation if we choose living in human suffering, or if we choose to take our own lives. Like this, it's just crucial that men really hear that part out, is that it's not just about you in that moment. That when we hear about one of the things we do as therapists, to kind of go off on the, we asked about history. And how many times did we get in history over here? Oh, my grandfather committed suicide. Oh, my brother on my daddy's side committed suicide. Oh, this, and this. He's dealt with mental health issues his whole life and he never really did anything about it. So you think your one act is only going to affect the people in that moment. No, these are generational things that it will affect them going forward.
Good point.
Yeah. I was just going to say, to add to that, understanding that the spiritual component behind it and the lies that have been believed to get you to a point to where you want to take yourself out, or you just don't want to show up right in the way that you need to. We have to go back to the roots of the things that we are believing about ourselves, that we are believing that we can or cannot do, that we can or cannot fix. And so it is very important to sit down and do some self-evaluation, and on the things that you know you have control over, to start taking a stance, right? And shifting our mindsets to there's something I can do versus looking at life as it's something I can't do. Um, we know that, as far as just responsibilities and different things like that, that everybody has a responsibility in life. If you have kids, you have responsibility. Even if you don't have kids, you still have a responsibility to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And so taking care of your mental health, taking care of your daily hygiene, all those things are important. If you get to a low place, what brought you to this place to where now you feel so low about yourself that you feel like you can't rise above it? And so we have to just take some time to evaluate ourselves. We have to take some time to see why we're important. If you were put here, then you have a reason to be here. And so why cut yourself short, and pretty much the people that you may have are supposed to impact by just taking, that route, or just not even going to seek help at all. And so there's so many more people connected to you than the people that are around you. But we have to change our perspectives and come up higher in the way that we even think and look about ourselves and our situations. If we stop in the midst of the problems and the issues that we have, then we'll never be able to get to the people that we were supposed to impact. Our testimonies are vital. The things that we are experiencing in life are not just for us. And so it is harder because it's not just for us. It's harder because, you know, um, we don't always understand, and that's okay. But at the end of it, still now learning to go back to, okay, to get an understanding, because the word says in all things get make sure you get an understanding. So understanding like why I may not necessarily know all the things, but I need to understand why I feel this way. I need
Mhm.
to understand why I'm making the choices that I'm making. And so I need to understand why I've gotten to this low place. And so just going back, do the self evaluation. So then now you can write everything out, you see it, and then now you can go do something about it.
I wanted to piggyback off that was good too message, Tatiana. I wanted to piggyback off something Darnisha was saying about the doctors. And what God highlighted to me is the vulnerability, right?
Mhm.
When you're sick, you don't care who help you. You just want to get the help that you need. I just went to the mighty emergency room having a sinus infection. They told me I was gonna have to bend over so I could get a shot in my behind or whatever for my steroid shot. I bet you I bent over and it was a man giving me that shot. I don't care what it takes. I wanted to feel better. So I wasn't afraid about being vulnerable in that moment because I needed the help. So listen, as women, we have to have breast exams yearly. We have to have, I mean, if you go in for any STD testings, you're pregnant, whatever, you got to lay up on that gurney and spread your legs wide open, right? Let's just be truthful. It's a vulnerable act, but we trust doctors to see all of us, right? Men, you have to have colonoscopies. You guys have to have testicular exams, all this stuff. Y'all not afraid to go do that. So I gotta pose this to the men outside of vulnerability. Why are you continuing to suffer in silence with your mental health, with your emotional health, with your spiritual health when you hear three women out here right now, like, listen, we get it, we understand, we counsel it, we see it every day. You should not be ashamed of wanting to get the help that you need, the same way we go to the doctor and get the help that we need. And what Darnisha said about that, when it comes to vulnerability, you might not can't call your homeboy or your mama or even your wife, your spouse, about what you're struggling with. They might not understand, but there's people out there that actually do. So again, title, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is insanity. This is what's causing suicide. This is what's causing people to go insane. You're not doing anything about it, or you're doing the same things over and over again, which is not going to be the solution to your problems.
Absolutely. Or I think Tatiana may have mentioned it earlier that we're running to the wrong things. And so what happens is that when we're suffering, we normally try to go to things that suppress it. Drugs, alcohol, promiscuity. So the problem still persists. It's still there. We haven't addressed it.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things are obviously not healthy coping skills. It leads you down, can lead you down, will lead you down a horrible path if you do it long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to encourage men that just because you don't think about it that day doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's still there. Um, you need to take the time to really hit and hone on those things that are making you cause you to feel those things, or you're using unhealthy coping skills, or that you're choosing not to do with it at all, or that you are a shell of yourself. That's what happens. You deal with anything long enough and you hold it in long enough, you're not who you're truly meant to be. You know what I'm saying? We know people deal with things, and oftentimes adults they've been dealing with it for years. Rarely do we get an adult to be like, yeah, this just happened 6 months ago. Rarely. It happens, but it's a rarity. Most of the time when we get adults sitting in front of us, they've been dealing with these things for years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you have to ask yourself, do I really want to deal with this for another year? Do I really want to have to feel this way for another 6 months? Do I really want to feel this way next month? No. The answer is no. If I'm sad, I don't want to be sad for an extended amount of time. I want my sadness moment to be over as quickly as possible. And sometimes sadness do last longer than we want it to. But I don't want it to be years. I don't want it to be months. I'm okay with having moments because we're human. We're gonna have those moments. But to have to live an entire lifetime or months, a year normally, like I say, normally it's years of sadness because I refuse. Because at some point we're refusing. It's a refusal. It's not a not knowing. We're just literally refusing to refuse to get the adequate help, and not be and live life to my fullest potential. You're doing a disservice to yourself. You're not hurting anyone at that point. You hurting you more than anybody else.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so this, we actually get excited. And I know it's probably, as a therapist, a weird thing to get excited about because we just love helping people. We actually get excited when we get men to reach out for therapy. It's one of those things where we like, hey, I got an adult male that reached out for therapy, and I'm so excited to hear his story because it happens so few far in between that we get excited when we see a man actually reach out and is willing to actually go through the process of therapy. When we do marriage counseling, of course, I mean, for most of us, they're usually there at some point. The male is there, but usually the wife is more engaged and she's told him he had to come. Um, but every now and again, you get a man who reaches out who wants to do the marriage counseling and is highly engaged in the entire process. So, man, you don't understand how valuable your input
Yeah.
is. You don't understand how valuable it is to your children, your marriage, your marriages, and the people you interact with. God literally chose you to lead the homes, lead in life in those type of situations. So if you are guarded as a man of God to lead your household, so that means you're leading your wife, you're leading your children, and a lot of you are leaders in organizations. How are you doing that successfully if you're not getting the adequate help you need? You may be doing it, but that doesn't mean you're doing it to the best of your ability. You're doing it, and it's a lot of things we can just do,
Right.
but that doesn't mean we're doing it well, if that makes sense. And so you have to be willing to go ahead and stop doing the same old thing that you've been doing for the last decade because that's how you roll, even though you know it's not the best you can do, and get the adequate help so you can be a better version of yourself and be the type of leader that your wife needs, be the type of leader that your children need, be the type of leader that your organizations need as well. So Glow Stars is here to be able to help you through those journeys. Again, we really get excited when we see men come, and so our goal is, to be able to service everybody. But this initial talk about starting Glow Stars started from seeing men, in our town in Tulsa, where we're from, just doing those right before COVID, well, and then into COVID, just committing suicide.
Yeah.
Being around men that we saw were suffering,
Mhm.
and we were just, even before we got Glow Stars, just being therapists, like, hey, did you see such and such? I can tell they really struggling. I don't know what they're struggling with, but this guy's really struggling with something. And I really hope he gets help. And we can, as therapists, obviously, oftentimes having conversations with people, we can tell when someone's struggling with what they're not truly telling us, because we're kind of trained to do it. And so we find that you'll find that with men, women are usually a lot more vulnerable, just because that's the emotional side of us. So it's usually women are a little bit more vulnerable. But we have created a space that we're being like, come on, you can say anything. It's nothing that you're gonna say that's gonna make my eyes bulge, or something we haven't heard. We just want you to be able to say the stuff that you're not saying to anybody else, that you've been holding on, and you really need to get out and you need to work through. So find the adequate help to do that. Also, I implore men, therapists, male therapists out there, please encourage your people around you to get therapy. Yes, male therapists aren't as we don't have as many, which is ironic because traditional therapy was created by men. And so when therapy first started as a practice, pretty much every therapist was a man. To now in this day and age, where majority of your mental health professionals are women, if you are a male therapist out there, psychologists, psychiatrists, please implore men to really seek out help. It helps us help them.
Mhm.
Yep, that's good.
I actually had a scripture. Both Garnisha and Tatiana hit on this. Unless you turn to God. And the most important scripture, I found this scripture last night when we were talking about this, and the title of it was Unless You Turn to God.
Mm-hmm.
It's Luke 13, and I'm going to read it 1 through 9, but we're going to really break this down about insanity. And the reasons why not just going to say men are dying, but all people, why people struggle
Mm-hmm.
with suicide. It says about that time, some people came up and told him about the Galileans, polites, and how they had killed while they were at worship, mixing their blood with the blood of the sacrifices on the altar. Jesus responded, do you think those murdered Galileans were worse sinners than all the other Galileans? Not at all. Unless you turn to God, you too will die. And those 18 in Jerusalem the other day, the ones crushed and killed under the Tower of Solomon, collapsed and fell on them. Do you think they were worse citizens than all the other Jerusalemites? Not at all. Unless you turn to God, you too will die. Then he told them a story. A man had an apple tree planted in his front yard. He came to it expecting to find apples, but there weren't any. He said to the gardener, what's going on here? For 3 years now, I've come to this tree expecting apples, and not one apple have I found. Chop it down. Why waste good ground with it any longer? The gardener said, let's give it another year. I'll dig around it and fertilize it, and maybe it will produce next year. If it doesn't, then I'll chop it down. The whole point of that gardener first is for 3 years, nothing produced in his life, nothing produced in that apple tree. And then he got the wise idea, let me try to fertilize it, do some things around it. Maybe next year I might get an apple. So that's 4 years that have been wasted in your life thinking maybe next year I'll get to my mental health. Maybe next year I'll start working on it. Not understanding that problems pile on and pile on year after year. So what may started off as one issue, now you got to deal with like 10 of them because you just didn't deal with that one. Years went by. That's insanity. At the beginning of this, when I read about the people that were dying, and God said this twice, unless you turn to God, you also will die. Now, we all know in the natural that we all have a physical death. We'll all leave this earth one day. But that was speaking of too is actually your spiritual side, your soul as well. When you continue to do things that are not right from you, you are dying. That's how your soul feels. And this is why suicide becomes an option. So we are all killing ourselves slowly when we are not addressing the issues, but we're going to particularly highlight men. So men, you may have been dealing with something since you was a child, or you had a tragedy, you didn't deal with it. Do you understand why you even consider suicide? You're slowly dying because of it. This is a generation where we have so many resources. Mental health is being highlighted for men this month because we understand the prevalence of suicide and the high suicidal risk in African American men. Men in our African American community where generational curses, generational habits have been passed down from slavery, and we ain't doing nothing about it. It's time for suffering to end now. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's good, Gail. And I love that scripture because it highlights unless you go to God. And I think it's important that we do go to God, and I think that's also an absence that we find
Yeah.
in our community sometimes. Yes, Black people tell you all day long, I believe in God, I love the Lord, but the work behind that is something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just learning that now, within the last decade, if I'm being honest, to be very transparent. The work behind that is key.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't forget that portion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think if more people realize and got deeper into that, they will realize that like I got some real tough things here I need to really address and change in my life, and so I can truly hear from God. That's another thing. People are like, you're not hearing from God because you got all of this jumbled up from the enemy in your head that you've been believing for decades about yourself. And so you can't really hear what he's trying to tell you. Just like in my scripture about Job, Job was going to his friends and all of these things. And the young man that came to him was like, I'm trying to tell you something. I'm trying to get your message because God said you need to listen to what he is trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we get so frustrated in our situations, we forget that portion of it. So reminding ourselves that we need to talk to God about this. We need to be open with us. We need to be honest with ourselves. I think that's one thing that I find that I found with the few men I've been able to serve, as opposed to women. Women tend to be a lot more honest about the stuff they deal with. Like, look, yeah, right now I probably ain't a good mother because I've just been going ham on everybody, where I find that men oftentimes will downplay their things until you actually call them out on it because um, they've been such in a position to where they really don't talk about these things, so they created in their mind that it's not that big a deal,
Right.
not that big a deal to them when in reality it is a big deal. So they tend to downplay a lot of the things that they do. And I understand that. It's easier to kind of make it real, like it's not a priority to be able to deal with things than to make it a top priority and still not deal with it. And so we need you, man. That's one thing. I think that's another thing that we find, that this idea that we don't need men. We absolutely 100% need our men. God created you first. He was very strategic about that. He does not make any mistakes. You are needed in this world. You are needed in these spaces where other humans are. You are needed in every aspect of life, just like women are. Um, this idea that no one needs you, that we can live life without you, and even if we do, it doesn't mean life is great or good. It just means we're existing. And I don't like to live just existing. I don't think anybody does. So
Mm-hmm.
let men understand that you are needed. You are appreciated. You are loved. And this ideal otherwise is just untrue. It's just a message from the enemy. And so getting the adequate help so you can become the best, I don't care what age you are either, the best version of yourself. I'd rather you live the next 20 years a better shell of person than you than go 20 years without the help. So I
Yeah.
don't, the age doesn't matter. People think, oh, I'm 50. I think I am who I am. No, go get the help. I don't care that you've been dealing with this trauma for the last 3 decades. Go get the adequate help you need. Age does not matter We literally can counsel anybody from the age of 400 to, I mean, from 4 to 400. It doesn't matter your age. Get the help that you need. You are valued. You are needed. Your role in society, your role um, is all the roles that you handle. And again, God was very strategic about who you are and the role you play in this life. And so, um, time is one of the things that God can restore, but He can't give it back, if that makes sense. He can restore your time, but we can't get this specific day back. You can't say, God, restore my time. Can you go back to January 1983? Like, no, you can't do that. But He can restore your time. So that means using the time that we have wisely so He doesn't always have to do that.
Yeah, that's good. I was just gonna say, I was just thinking as you were talking, time is important, because a lot of time we waste time
Mm-hmm.
as far as just because we're stuck in a place, right? And so um, we're trying to figure it out as far as like, what do I do next and how do I do it? And so we stay stuck in those modes of, well, I don't know what to do, so then I'm not going to do anything at all. But I feel like this is just a vital, piece to life is that we have to get to a place to where if we don't know, then we go seek the help that we need so we can know. And so men are very important. We need to see more men in homes. We need to see more healthy men in homes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what you present to your children matters. The children then now take on the traits that what you present to them. And so it's important that we start to see more healthy relationships, and men actually leading. um, we need the strength of men. We need the expertise of men. We need men. So you're absolutely right. Not only that, we want men. We want our
Absolutely.
men to be able to become the best version of themselves. It's time for the men to show up. And so it's time for them to show up better. And so we want to see that. We want to see you get better. We want to see you, truly accepting the love and getting the healing, the deliverance, so you can truly be free from the bondages of life that you've been holding on to. Freedom is a choice. Deliverance is a choice, and being healed is a choice. And so it's just time to start making different choices so we don't have to keep running back to doing the same thing over and over, and expecting a different result. It's just time to see something new and different in this world. A unified family, a unified front, even in kingdom, seeing a unified kingdom. And so we in order to do that, we have to get outside of what we believe and truly now walk in what we know. And so we know that God is a healer. We know that He is a deliverer. We know that He is a defender. We know those things, but now it's truly time for us to allow those things to transpire in our lives versus continuing to walk away. Walking away is easy, but it still leaves somebody with the responsibility. Don't leave somebody with the responsibility to clean up after you. It's time for us to clean up ourselves.
Thank you, Tatiana. That was good because when Darnisha was speaking, what I had wrote down was broken homes. And so we're living in a broken society, whether you're Christian, not believing in God, whatever, we are just dealing with broken people. So when you have broken people, you're not going to have a healthy home. You're not going to have healthy children. And again, this cycle continues.
Yeah.
So what we're pretty much pushing out into the world is insanity. Nobody trying to do nothing about their brokenness, but continuing to hurt people. That is a problem. And we have to address it like what you were saying, Tatiana. If we want more healed home, if we want more healed children, it start with us as men and women doing better, getting the help that we need to become healthy and whole. Now, I get it. It's almost like every addiction, and a lot of us, we are addicted to just what is bad. You can get comfortable in your brokenness, but it still doesn't change the fact that you are not a healed person. And in order to get to the other side of this, you're going to have to get out your comfort zone and get uncomfortable in dealing with the things that you need to deal with Father's Day just passed. I think about my children's father. Those men coming a long way and working on themselves. As I'm not gonna say for all women because I know it's some deadbeat women too, but what Tatiana was saying about the responsibility when men don't deal with their stuff, they usually end up putting the responsibility on women, and that's not fair. When the whole point is God shaped men to be responsible for his family. So there is a imbalance in the homes, in the lives of people because men are not playing their roles, which is pushing women. I see this debate online all the time about independent women. Women don't need us. Duh, duh, duh. Nah, I'm a woman. I really want somebody to pay my bill. I mean, I want to be married. I don't want to do anything on my own. And even me having an ex-husband, being able to explain that to him and him really stepping up to this time, like, listen, God has called, we got stuff that we want to do for ourselves as women too. So if we had true support in the home and the responsibilities were even, I promise you, we would have less broken people because everybody will be focused on their purpose. Women, sometimes we don't have a choice in being independent because if we don't do it, then who's going to do it? So I hear these debate a lot about men, and I get it, bisexual homosexuality, and men will say, oh, the women raising these boys wrong. Well, you supposed to be raising them. To be honest. So again, it goes back to men. You can't point the finger at what you think is not working if you ain't willing to be the change and do something different.
Or if
Yeah,
you're not
you're
participating in
not
that.
participating. For
Yeah.
me, then you have no right to comment
Right.
because you're not even doing your part. Then, but it starts with your part. Again, we are three women. Love men. I have to say no to men. Sometimes I hate it. So, but I want a healthy man. I want a man that knows how to deal with him stuff. I want a man that knows his responsibility, his role to play to me. And I think that's a lot of women. So we're not on this live to bash men. We love men. But it's time for men to step up and play their role.
Yes.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. As single women, we often see those debates, and we, of course, have conversations among ourselves about that. Um, and I'm going to just go back to the Bible. God was very strategic in the role that he put us in. In that, the man was the lead and that the women was the helpmate, that we played a very strategic role in order to keep the family system together. And we all can attest that for a lot of cases, the family system is broken. And that plays a role into what your mental health. A lot of people we know come from broken homes, or even toxic homes, non two parent homes. And let's be completely 100. All two parent homes ain't great either.
Yeah.
No, sometimes it's better to
So
be by yourself, raising kids.
so we have to understand that aspect in the role that we play as adults in the future of our children. I know, like I said, majority of the adults we come across are usually dealing with some childhood trauma. But again, like Gail said at the beginning of this live, that you have a responsibility as an adult. Once you become an adult, it is now your responsibility. We cannot wait on the people who may have hurt us for them to help us on our healing journey. 90% of the time, that's not going to happen. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's just not.
With that
Every now and
unapology.
again, you get an apologetic mother or an
Right.
apologetic father who's really on board. But really, be honest, it doesn't happen very often. But we are responsible for our own health and mental health once we become an adult, and to ensure that we're doing the right way, so we don't become the adults that our parents were to us in some cases. So, for men, I think that's a lot of crucial because oftentimes we hear that, oh, my daddy wasn't in my life. It wasn't that big a deal. I turned that out right. Let's really dissect that. You know what I'm saying? Do you really, you know what I'm saying? Let's really dissect that. You know what I mean? I mean, I didn't make the best decisions. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Let's really be honest about how some of those things may impact us. Now, that's not to say that anybody that was raised by a single mother isn't some great human being, because there are a lot of them out there, men and women. But to say that internally there isn't something missing is a misconception, because there is.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely tell the difference of women who, in my personal experience, who did live lives inept fathers as those who did, and how they, view life and view relationships. View relationships that well. In Northeast, we'll be discussing the mind here in a couple of weeks, and we really dive into how the mind works on the decisions that we make, and a lot of that is due to things that we encounter in life. Everything that decision we make in the mind is due to something that has either happened to us, we thought about it, or we lived through it. So, and that's how we make the decisions that we make in our lives. So I really, really implore men to really just take a step back and think about these things, and then understand the impact that it has on your life. And maybe you're not in the worst situation, which is great. Um, but that still doesn't mean you can't benefit from really diving into some of those things that you probably never really thought about, and the effect that it has on the decisions you make, the type of father you are, the type of husband you are, the type of friend you are, X, Y, and Z, um, to be able to be better versions of yourself in all those relationships for you and for the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Um, Last thing that I have to say is that if you are a woman and you have obviously a brother, a husband, a son, a dad, or anybody that you know that's a male that's around you, speak life into them.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important. Even, I mean, I feel like if nothing else, that is the responsibility of a woman, is to speak life.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's time to speak life into these men, encourage them, support them. Obviously, I'm not saying support foolishness, but show that it's okay, to share, be a safe space,
Mm-hmm.
for these men. And so we have to get to a place to where we're seeing men begin to thrive and actually rise to get back in the position that obviously the enemy continues to use to take away, and now try to put women in certain positions. But we know that wasn't the design. But at the end of it all, just speak life. I feel like it's just vital in this time right now that we're in,
Absolutely.
that life needs to be spoken, that we need to see people healed and whole, that we need to see people encouraged, we need to see people know that, hey, take a stance, become a victor over the situations and circumstances that you've been in, what you walked through. Life is hard. Yes, it is. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have to consume you. You don't have to take yourself out. You don't have to give up. You can keep going no matter the pressures of life. Keep going. You are wanted. You are loved. You are needed. And so I just want men to know that it is time to also just take a stance for who you are. And if you're not where you want to be, then start, by taking that step to become who you want to see in life. You don't have to stay stuck in where you are. We want to see you at your best. If we had more men at their best, then I mean the dynamics of how it would just shape and shift the world. Because then we'll have men that will go into positions, instead of being selfish. Then now you have things that are unlocked that need to be done within the earth, and then now you have more communities coming together once men come together and take
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
stances.
Um,
Absolutely. Good.
Last thing I want to share, and then Darnisha, you're more than welcome to close us out. But what you said, Tatiana, that's what I was hearing God say. The reason why God made Adam and Eve is because he knew if these two came together in agreement, they were a power couple. So we see this in society, and we try to compare the world's power couples to what God intended to be with kingdom couples. Two healthy, whole individuals that got their mind up and understand their person can literally take over this entire world. Why do you think men and women are fought so hard and they are broken, and why the enemy tries to keep us separated? So I just wanted to really make that point to men and women, though. Get yourself whole and get yourself healed and become the power couples, the power people that God intended us to be. He said he didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So you think two strong, powerful people coming together gonna be weak? Nah. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a time for strong people, and it starts with your mind. We'll be discussing it, y'all. We've been sharing about it. A made up mind, a strong mind makes a strong heart. I mean, you literally can walk through anything. Because here's what we're saying in counseling: life gonna happen to us all. We gonna have to walk through some stuff. But a powerful mind, a powerful person can walk through anything. And then when you got another powerful person, I was just telling these women, man, I'm so powerful because of them. And they ain't even my man. I be thinking it sometimes, but like y'all ain't even my man. And my other friends, some of them are listening. They strengthening me. I don't complain much about anything I walk through life because I'm strong, but I'm not saying it in a physical sense. I listen to God. I take my own counseling advice. I take the counsel of wise people when it comes to my life. I'm under a good church home. I'm under a good male pastor that speaks life into me. So they call me as who I am. So when Tatiana was saying women, it's time to speak life into men, implore them to get the help that they need, not in judgment. But do you know how powerful you could be if you just dealt with that? Do you know how powerful you could be if you just put down the weed for a minute and the alcohol literally cleared your mind up and your spirit and started taking care of your physical health? My trainer, he's a man. He one of the mentally strongest person I know. He empowers us, and it's most women that go to our workouts. It's an imbalance. So all God is asking men to do, let's get back in place and get in balance. For the people that are listening, we've been seeing people come in and out. If this registers with you in any type of way, share it with a man today. Because even if you can't speak life into them, I believe me and my partners did.
Absolutely, absolutely. That I think you two ladies dropped it up well. Is that when speaking, to any male in your life, whether it's your husband, significant other, dad, brother, your child, that you're speaking life and love with them. Go with them in love. I want you to get up because I love you. I want to see you happy. I want to see you whole. I want to see you at your best. And at the end of the day, they have to make a decision for their lives, but you have done your part.
Yeah.
And some men have said that that's what they felt like they lacked. Well, they're not going to lack it anymore. Go with love, go with encouragement. I love you, so I want to see you at your best. I want to see you get the necessary help, so you're no longer feeling this way. So we'll end it for today. It was a dynamic conversation. We really love this. June is men's mental health month. Please send them this video. You feel like they need it. You feel like they need the encouragement. They need the advice. They need that one step into the right direction to get the help they need. Please make sure that you send them this message in its entirety. Follow us on social media, on YouTube, on TikTok. We do show clips of our videos, and here on Facebook as well. So thank you guys for listening, and enjoy the rest of your life.